what's up, YouTube? It's part 2 of the Robby Starbuck dissertation. I literally just pressed stop record and start record. Again, my Twitch chat saw me do that in real time. They now think I'm weird. I wouldn't have to do this, but I know how long videos can get, so I'm just doing this for the sake of, how you watch. I could just cut the fucking video into pieces and make you watch it like that, but I thought this would be cooler. So let's get into part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, watch part 1, because, I'm already pissed off as is.
Directed Oscar-winning actors, actresses, and some...
Literally lying. So he continued this lie on Tucker Carlson almost 8 months later. How do I disprove someone when I can tell you they just lie? That man stood up there and the first thing that came out of his mouth was a lie. But it's wrong of me to go and fold him like an omelet? Some
of the biggest music stars in the world, but in 2015, I came out as a Republican, the most unforgivable crime you can commit in Hollywood. And
that's really not true.
Then I endorsed Trump, which they didn't know that you could do something worse than come out as Republican, but that was it.
This was after the insurrection. I was right. I was right about how we're going to remember January 6th. All of those people are heroes in MAGA's eyes. Ashley Babbitt was a hero. A QAnon supporter that got roped up into the fall of man, and now Ashley Babbitt is a hero.
It was not a very popular thing to do, but I would do it all over again 1,000,000 times if given the chance, despite losing 85% of our business in that.
Cancel culture. Niggas don't fuck with you.
That first year, and my little girl being called a racist because her Cuban dad was conservative.
Id poll. Straight up. My daughter was called a racist because her Cuban dad is a Republican. I'm sure they called you a racist because you want lower taxes for the rich. I'm sure that had something to do with it, and not the whole Mexicans are coming to our border. I can't do a Trump voice. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Trevor Noah's Trump voice and trying to replicate that. The Mexicans, they're bringing their rapists. That surely had nothing to do with it. The Muslim ban surely had nothing to do with it. All the we Jews will not replace us surely had nothing to do with it. What a Weasley little liar, dude. There we go. It's the relations. It's the relations of the embargo. I remember this argument. Really, the embargo made them think of communism? I cannot say he's a Republican candidate because he does not have. I was there to say that Trump is almost running independently. He hasn't covered a lot of corruption from both. Yeah. Fuck. That's what this is. Running on his platform is to stop communism.
And I would do it over and over again because this country gave me the opportunity to stand up. And that's something that a lot of people lose sight of.
Bro, you could have went to Europe and been world famous. You could have been working with Adele. With the work he was putting out, if he would have just kept grinding, if he were to have kept to the grind.
There's people in China and in Cuba who don't have that luxury. So I will stand up every single time. So today I am here to stand up and tell you that I am critically concerned about the relationship that big tech has with the Democratic Party and government at large.
It would appear that Facebook's biggest stars are by far conservative white men. Wow, Occupy Democrats is up there now. Ben Shapiro, Barack Obama. Okay, that's Deadline Hollywood. Ben Shapiro. How many times is Ben, Barack? Oh, Ben didn't even make the list this time. CNN, NPR. Okay, so it's based on news, pretty much. Dinesh, Ben, 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 Ben. The other 98%, Ben. It seems like big tech, at least the biggest one that's integrating into the metaverse, wants to push conservative values as their top news sources.
It doesn't stop just, on the base level of, oh, there's censorship. If you pull a layer back, you'll see that at each one of these big tech companies, they are actually hiring people that have worked for the Democrats. At Twitter, their comms director worked for Kamala Harris as her press secretary.
But then you ask about cancel culture when we talk about Kaylee Mack. How are you at CPAC and you didn't touch grass on the way there?
Instagram, theirs used to work for Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton. And at Facebook, theirs worked for Barbara Boxer. The list goes on and on. I could
Environment and Public Works Committee and the Select Committee on Ethics. She was also Democratic Chief Deputy Whip. I don't know what that is. Okay, so it just says party leader, so that must have been an old term. Boxer joined representative in filing a U.S. congressional objection to the certification of a Lyle site. Ooh, look at that. Same thing happened. He was succeeded by former and future Vice President Kamala Harris. Based lobbying firm. Boxer was working as a registered foreign agent, a Chinese sponsor who prompted Biden to return a donation she had made. Initially defending her work, she reversed course and publicly announced she had deregistered a foreign agent and for let her exodus from California. Okay, so it says public image. I saw something about hate crime. Oh, just platforming votes on her stuff. Criticizing Condoleezza Rice's judgment. Television, 2 doctors of law, honorary degrees. As accused Boxer failing to disclose real property on a financial Boxer's $1 million home she owns. Okay, so it's a regular fucking politician, so it's the same as the other shit.
Could be here my entire time slot if I kept going. To make matters worse, there's people in Congress who actually endorse their silencing of you, and not only that, they believe it should go a step further. They want there to be a social credit system because then you'll be so afraid to state your opinion that you'll hold it back for fear that your business will be destroyed, your access to the platforms will be destroyed. This is why we need to acknowledge as conservatives that we are in a culture war and we are losing. And if we want to win, we need to acknowledge that fact. Culture is an important question. They recently had Joe Biden on CNN, and they did something that I never thought CNN would do, but they asked him about the Uyghurs in China who are being raped, tortured, and children are being kidnapped, forced to praise China as their mother and to praise communism as their savior. They asked Joe Biden about it, and he said it amounted to a mere cultural difference. I don't think that more disgusting words have ever left the lips of an American president. And it was at that moment that if you didn't already know that he was not an American president, that was the moment where you should have known he was China's first president of America.
I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for this. Oh, gee. Gee Williker. Looks like that didn't last long.
And why is that important? That's important because our own culture is
Time shows the grift.
shifting. So if he can discredit that to just a mere cultural difference.
Matter of fact, who the fuck is asking for a social credit score? Isn't that a credit score now? Can't you be denied access to certain things based on your credit score, like buying a car, American dream, buying a home, owning a credit card alone, getting loans?
What will the leader of the Democratic Party and Democratic Party at large do when our own culture shifts to a point where, I can give you an example, recently a lawyer at PBS, yes, PBS, where they make children's show, a lawyer there called...
They also make Charlie Rose, they also make all them talk shows, they also make Antique Roadshow, like where they make children's shows. PBS Kids is not the same as PBS, and you know that to be a fact.
For Republicans' children to be put into re-education camps. So what happens if our own culture shifts to that point where that becomes acceptable? I think we all know the answer to that. And that's why we have to fight back. So I want to praise the people who are doing it right. People like the Daily Wire, who just hired Gina Carano.
Oh my God. Ben Shapiro, the man who can't get his wife wet, he's doing it so good. He's so entertaining and so informative. He's an informative, intellectual, ideological giant.
Carano, after she was fired by Disney and Lucasfilms.
Oh my God, I know the video is old, but can you imagine that this is the man who probably still has these opinions? And that's why we do the Twitter thing, because I can see what they said like yesterday. Talking about my dissertations.
Ron DeSantis and Josh Hawley, who are fighting through legislation. And now to all of us, what we need to do, we need to put the pressure on our AGs, our state legislatures, our congressmen, congresswomen. We need to pressure our governors to go ahead and bring that fight the same way that Ron DeSantis and Josh Hawley have, and people like Matt Gaetz, who's following after me.
The child pedo? The guy who sex traffics? The guy who you said, well, didn't you go on Fox News 8 months later and say that sex trafficking and human trafficking is at its highest ever? And now you're representing, or you're putting up on a pedestal the guy who does said thing?
Our biggest donors need to match them with funding, because we are not going to be given a seat at the table by these people in Hollywood. It is never going to happen. We have to build our own pillars of culture in academia, publishing, music, film, all around. And I'm not talking about something that's narrowly attractive. I'm talking about something that's broadly attractive to everybody, because that's how the left got here. They used subtlety to change the minds of children, reaffirmed it at college, and then the kids came home hating the values their parents had raised them with. We can't allow that to happen for another generation, so I am calling us all to action. You know, Ronald Reagan once said that we had a time for choosing, and I'm saying that we have a time for choosing again. If we want this party to survive, we need to go back to his words. Reagan once said that we face the greatest enemy in man's long climb from the swamp to the stars, and that if we lose that war, that in so doing we would lose this freedom of ours. He then said that history would record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to stop it. We need to make sure that that's not how history records us. He went on to tell a story about a Cuban refugee and two businessmen, where the two businessmen were listening to the refugee tell his story. One businessman turned to the other and said, "We don't realize how lucky we are." And the Cuban turned to them and said, "No, you don't realize how lucky I am. I had someplace to go to." And in that sentence, he told the entire story, because this is our last stand. This is freedom's last stand. If America falls, freedom falls. And so we all need to double our efforts. We all need to double our efforts and make sure that we left nothing on the table, because this is a fight worth having. This is a country worth saving, and freedom is something that should be a human right. And we are the fighters who need to ensure that the next generation has it.
We just want health. We just want healthcare. We just want healthcare. I I am saying this in a very emotional and aggravated fucking way because all these debate bros want you to sit there and go like this for 20 minutes and explain how this guy is wrong and then debate him on the market they play. We just want healthcare.
This country is what makes possible for my own mom to come from Cuba, going into the unknown, leaving the only home she'd ever known after it was stolen by communism, only
Holy shit.
able to bring one item with her. She brought a doll that was passed down in the family, and that doll, its head was smashed in by a soldier. And I say that because I want you to know that that's what leftism does. It steals.
Where did you? Oh my. I had a game when I was 8 years old and it was called Mega Man and my friend stole it from me, and I'm going to let you guys know right now that that's what leftism does. That's communism. That's socialism. When people just take things away from you and you don't have the right to defend yourself.
Steals everything from you. And so this is our last stand. I hope you join me in fighting for freedom. That's why I'm able to stand up here. That freedom in America is the reason I can be here and say that I am running for Congress in the state of Tennessee in 2022. Thank you, guys. And lastly, I just want to say that this is my last remark. Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, a wave of lions is coming in 2022. We will not allow you to get away with what you've gotten away with anymore.
Why won't he bring up YouTube?
You fight for the establishment, we fight for the people, so get ready because you are going to have the biggest fight on your hands that you two have ever had, and that goes for everybody else in big tech. Thank you, guys.
As he platforms himself on big tech, as he has most of his reach on big tech, I hate everything. We are 17 minutes into part 2. This is different. This man is different. This man is different. This man is different. This man is different.
Thank you guys for being here. This is step one. The bravery of just coming in these times is something to, be applauded, honestly, because we've sort of been messaged this idea that if you even stand up against an issue like this, there's something wrong with you. So I want to give a round of applause to all of you guys for actually coming today. So I feel like I don't need to do an intro because she did such a great one. I'll just dive right in. The goal of critical race theory is Marxism. It's
Come on, man. Healthcare. I just want healthcare. Oh my! I just want healthcare. I just want healthcare. I just want healthcare. That's all I want. I don't. How many pieces I gotta do on CRT? It doesn't make sense to me. Clip that. Clip that one. That's how I feel.
It's what will appear to be a new type of racism in America, but it's really not new. This is something that is permeated in color revolutions and in Marxist revolutions all over the world, from China to Cuba to Venezuela. The list goes on and on.
iPhone. Vuvuzela. Vuvuzela iPhone. 100 billion dead. Where's that fucking meme? Where's that meme?
You don't like capitalism, yet you exist! iPhone, Venezuela, bottom text, 100 billion dead! 100 billion dead!
I hate it here, yo. I hate it here, yo.
And a lot of people may not understand the connection to Marxism. So I want to be very clear about this. One of the chief architects of critical race theory is a guy named Ibram Kendi. If you've never heard of him, you should look him up and read a little bit about him, because he's one of the architects here. And I'm going to give you guys a quote from him. He said, "You cannot be anti-racist unless you are anti-capitalist." Okay, so that tells you right away the solution to this is the elimination of capitalism.
Yes. If you're new to the paradigm shift, or you haven't seen me go off like this in a long time, I used to say things like, make sure you pay attention to what I say, because everything comes back around. I make sure that, you know, when I put a sentence out there that it's supposed to be a paradigm moment, it's supposed to be important. Remember at the beginning when I said that these two things, him and his starting in the metal scene all the way to this, doesn't make any sense? Like, what would you find the thread of connection for? If you're 2 parts into this and you haven't found the connection yet, that's the point. I want you to think about what parents, or what our Bullet for My Valentine, Rage Against the Machine, even in some cases Blink 182, Sum 41, the All American Rejects, you know, when the real deep emo Armor for Sleep shit was coming out and everything like that. Like, remember how that made you feel? Does that connect to anything you've heard thus far? So even as a person, you could figure out a way to empathize with the idea of, I see what pain he's going through, but the conclusion he's reaching isn't making much sense if, you know, you touch grass. So the problem that I have is trying to build a coherent argument against people like this, because my emotions take over, because it's like, this is stupid. But in the interest of being fair and balanced, trademark, copyright, let's dissect that. You cannot be anti-racist unless you are anti-capitalist as well, because capitalism in its current form perpetuates forms of societal racism, i.e. systemic racism, i.e. things like redlining, bank loans, the way banks were set up, the way that the way black people had to enter into, yeah, that was fair to say slaves on that regard, because you understood what context I was talking about, had to enter the banking system. Black Wall Street, the identity of black people in 2001, especially in 2008, during each of the elections. Like, you think about these things, the war on Iraq, how much pull do black Americans have in a say in the way the country works, the way systems, I think I already said banking, but like loans, the way home ownership was, the entry barrier points for low and poor class, or low income or urban citizens who generally are minorities. You cannot be anti-racist unless you are also anti-capitalist, because capitalism sets up these systems for minorities and poor whites to be blocked out of the system, i.e. basing it on how we remember the appraisal of the people, of the black women who Oh, it's a black person, so I'm appraising it at this value. Oh, a white person appraises it. Oh, it goes up in value. Like small inherent biases that make people in power make certain decisions that you can't see because they're not outside going, let's lynch all the black people. Like that, because you're not getting that, you feel like the racism isn't visible. These people figured it out to code it in a way where they could sit in a room with a black person, but they would never give that black person money or time or effort or the ability to speak on equal terms with them. I'm the greatest in the world at this. Don't play with me. But let's equalize it and not even talk about race if the sake of the argument is to explain that quote in a way where he could understand from his point of view. It blocks out a certain class of people based on income. If the people at the top are making the most money, and those people at the top have been inheriting that money and spinning it into bigger and bigger business ventures and having capital and investments and homeowner and property ownership, all these things that generate money over time. And you know that there was a specific time where a certain group of people, and we don't even have to go back to slavery. We could do the Jim Crow argument, but I'm not going to do that here. We can go into Japanese American internment camps. We can go into Chinese American internment camps. We could go into Spanish internment. Like we've had these camps. We could go before that and even go into the Native Americans give them their land back. You see, all of that is intersectional. And capitalism is the system that perpetuated creating these inequalities for the sake of wealth. You cannot argue this because the system that you cap for is telling you that's how it works. There's no hidden message. There's no I'm bringing this up out of hot air. It's in the system. You know that because you know that these things exist at this point in time. You know that these instances happen so often to so many random people that you can extrapolate it. You know that you can see the circumstances and say, well, that's a hardworking man. I don't see color. I think he should have that. And you wonder why that person didn't get it. And this is the reason why. Because people in power have the ability to make decisions for other people, and they can do that little nuanced bias thing where they look at a person's name and say, this person wouldn't be good for the job because their name is Shaniqua. Oh, you should have your hair in a certain way. Oh, you should look professional. Classism creates racism. And what caste system are we currently living under? If you want to say there's no racism in America, look at this. Watch this. You're going to love this, especially coming from a black man. They're going to clip this shit out of existence. Nope, not even going to give you that because I already made a joke about this on the stream. And now I can just pull back to that and we're going to put that on a t-shirt. If all lives matter and all races are equal, then how do you explain how it just so happened that the people who make the least amount of money and struggle and have to have government assistance also just happen to be the majority, even though white people make up more of a majority on food stamps, we're talking about in general leftist or urban cities. If these people generally are of black and brown persuasion in a multicultural setting, do you think they chose that? Or did the system create the inequality out of necessity because they view them as underclass? And you might want some empirical evidence to prove that black people and brown people and Asian people and all my homies down the block happen to be of a certain persuasion. Use the same stats that you'll be using for that 1350 bullshit and you're going to see it right there. So if I take these arguments as charitable, if I'm going to be the streamer that's super exciting and super in depth and everybody's loving my takes, then I have to take these arguments and be that charitable. I have to sit there for 5 minutes and explain that. But that is obvious to anybody who live in the hood. And I'm talking to my people in the hood. I don't give a damn about these white boys sitting up in California talking about Hassan's got the craziest drip. Like I'm trying to change something. I'm really trying to change something. I'm sorry if I don't fit into your little mold of leftist online debater and guy who I give a shit about people, yo. Like I care. I care. Put that down if I ever run for office and somebody says, ooh, show me clips to show he's a good person. This is your clip. This is your clip. This is your moment. This right here, all this my shit. This my shit. All this mine. This is my shit. Sue Surf voice. This is my shit. This my shit. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Y'all already know what it is. I'm a
What you know about features, shows, bookings, working on your tape because you gotta get your shit out. But still the homies need choppers. The ops gotta hit out. They hit my wrist, my ribs, my leg.
Not this. Not this. Not this. Give me a second.
Out features, shows, bookings, working on your tape because you gotta get your shit out. But still the homies need choppers. The ops gotta hit out. They hit my wrist, my ribs, my leg. And not having a third is some shit you trying to spit about? It's bullets in me forever, Johnny. Some rounds I still can't get out.
Shit. Bullets in me forever, Johnny. Some rounds I still can't get out. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're on YouTube right now, you have reached the end of part 2. Come back tomorrow for part 3, or maybe later on tonight. Who knows how I feel?